All right, so we are here today and we are going to talk about social media in particular for marketers. Whether that's establishing your personal brand or what you need to understand, or like establishing that toolkit if you work in the marketing and branding industry, which is a complicated topic because Jordan, Ashwin, and I are all on big budget video shoots with people that don't quite know what they're doing. We also coach a lot of people who are talking, do I need a personal brand or don't need a personal brand? And we've all navigated this. So we're going to tap into that here today. We're going to go through a bunch of things that we've learned as we've grown our followings and some really practical advice. But first, we do have a marketing confessional this week. And so for those of you that haven't tuned into this before or seen it, we solicit anonymous opinions from around the internet on people who have experienced things on marketing campaigns or with brands that they would like to share that they feel people should know. Jordan, I'm going to pass it to you for this week's.
All right, gentlemen. This week we have a marketing confessional, which are anonymous sins from people who have worked on disaster campaigns. And I got a good one last week. So I submitted an open call. As always, our DMs are always open.
One of the most egregious cases of shrink it and pink it marketing. For those of you who don't know, as an aside, at Nike, this is a thing in the apparel and footwear industry as well, which is like you can either make something for women or you basically make it for men and then you shrink it and pink it, and then people just call it a day and call it a women's product, which is ridiculous and why a lot of those brands are losing. So here's one. I was working in brand management for one of the top sports nutrition companies, a brand you see at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, etc. Our hero SKU featured 3 Tier 1 athletes during their peak years: Gronk, Westbrook, and Stanton. This athlete validation and shelf-level consideration is part of what contributed to the brand's dominance. Context: at this point, the company is privately owned by its founder and CEO, who is very active in all decision-making. Red flag. In a constant search for white space products, the decision was made to launch a women's-focused protein product. The business did so in the laziest Control-C, Control-V way possible. Recreated Gronk, Westbrook, Stanton on label with Candace Parker, Danica Patrick, and Coco Ho. Standard 2-pound bottle shrunk to 1.2 pounds. Protein per serving shrunk from 30 grams to 16 grams. Added a tagline, quote, created for women by women. Parentheses, entire senior leadership team, brand team, and R&D team was all male. Oh my gosh. We have to laugh so we don't cry. Added a freaking female symbol to the product nomenclature. Parentheses, cringe.
Oh, you mean like the circle with the arrow?
Like the Prince like circle arrow thing.
I'd love to
Oh
see
my
it.
gosh. Here's the kicker. The product launched with a coral pink color, not because of a focus group insight, but because our CEO's daughter's favorite jacket from J. Crew was Pantone 805C. I will remember this Pantone for the rest of my days. The product predictably flopped and didn't last more than a
You mean
couple
Danica
resets.
Patrick doesn't have resonance at eye level on shelf with the female audience?
Yeah, what? Just putting the female tag in pink doesn't work? Shocking. Hero product and women's product attached for reference. Thank you so much.
All right, Antonio, let's see this. So let's see the male first. Okay, here we've got Gronk, Westbrook, and Stanton. Top athlete. I mean, honestly, that's a big get. Top football, basketball, and baseball player, really, at the time.
Yeah, look at that retouch job on Gronk. You know what I'm saying? Let's go.
Yeah, we've retouched the logo out of the football as a completely nerdy insight. Since he's an NFL player, he's only allowed to be shown with a Wilson football, but then you have to pay to have the NFL shield in it, and that's very expensive. So that's why you see footballs photoshopped out. This shirt is terrible, predictably, with 6-star nutrition and the sleeveless Pro Combat.
Also, just quick note here.
Yeah.
When I saw Westbrook, I'm like, damn, I didn't know Brian Westbrook still had it like that.
I really wanted to ask you if you could tell us tell us the other name of Westbrook, Stanton, and Gronk.
All right, continue.
Russell Westbrook. Ashwin, your Philly roots are
They're showing my decade-old Philly knowledge.
Indeed. Have you come down off the Super Bowl high yet, or no?
I ran into a guy from Philly the other day, and inevitably when we talk about the fact you meet someone else from Philly, they're like, "Go Birds," and I'm like, "Yeah, man, go Birds." And I was hoping he didn't say anything after that. I was like, I couldn't tell you a single person on that team.
No, seriously, right now, gun to head, could you name one Philadelphia Eagle?
Brother, wasn't Andy? I thought Andy Reid was still the Eagles coach.
He actually was on the other side.
I know.
He was in the game.
You can imagine my shock when I see him on the other team.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll hold it down for the sports knowledge here.
So-
Okay.
So, what,
all right.
what should they have done if they were? If you are six
Let's
star.
see. Hold on. Let's see the female version now, the Shrink It and Pink It version, and
Oh my God.
boom, 6-star fit.
Ooh, that F though.
Created for women by women. I cannot believe that they would actually put that tagline.
Well, I think
can,
that's
I can
like
believe it
a.
in a heartbeat, especially in
Can
fitness,
you?
they're just
I
like,
mean,
run it, you know.
Don't you think you could just imply it without ever actually saying it? I mean,
Yeah,
No,
of course.
they were like, this is a core part of the messaging strategy.
But you know that meme, like this is what a stupid person thinks a smart person sounds like. This is
Yes.
like the visual equivalent of that. This is like 10 guys being like, no, this is what women want. Just like
Totally.
throw women on it and say forward
Yeah.
by women.
yeah, let's get closer in on that. Okay. So we have Coral Pink, Pantone 805C.
Great shade, to be honest. Not gonna lie.
It is. Candace Parker is just kind of thrown back there. We've got Danica Patrick. Wow. Ashwin, what are your CPG packaging thoughts here?
I mean, let's leave aside the packaging thoughts. I mean, 6-Star is like a pretty big brand. I've seen them in like GNCs. I think I've seen them in Walmarts. Like I think notably sizable. Where I first started seeing that going off the rails is when that person started in a constant search of product white space. I think that always seems kind of like doomed from the start, where people are just working backwards from a spreadsheet to identify like some niche opportunity when they should probably just be focusing on like their core SKUs and like expanding within that range. So that was kind of like red flag number one. And then it just kind of continued to go downhill from there. And then I think what the other point that they called out there is predictably flopped, and it didn't last more than a couple of resets. So kind of resets being on store shelves, like the velocity just wasn't there. And if you're a brand with enough size and scale, you can kind of survive that. But if you're a smaller brand and you make a mistake like this, it's like, yeah, if you don't sell velocity, if you don't move that product, the retailer's just going to kick you out.
To me, it just seems like there's a lot going on. Like we've got 6-Star with a big star in it. There's a small tagline under it. I'm not sure what it is. Then we have the fit in the gold swirly stuff. We've got created women by women, the 3 athletes plus a surfboard, each of their names and their sport. Protein isolate. Don't forget the female ring.
Chaos.
Yeah. And then here's the worst part, actually. Guilt-free indulgence. Let's toggle back to the men's. Is there anything about guilt here on theirs? No guilt, just enhanced. I mean,
But there is Muscle Tech. Excellent trademark.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well,
Confused with Weather Tech.
Gosh, we have to laugh so we don't cry. Thank you so much for the marketing confessional this week. We will keep you completely anonymous. I was given full ability. I double checked that I could read all of that and show the images. And this person who submitted this said yes.
No, they were like, oh, there's 40 or 50 people on the team that felt this way. Don't worry. I got it.
Yeah, totally. Okay.
All right. Piecing back over to the core of this episode. So I think I posted a carousel last week that sparked this conversation where I was celebrating 400,000 Instagram followers. My first note is I hate this forward image, but I ran with it because for a number of reasons. And it's gone way bigger than most of my carousels do, which is like a lesson in there about sometimes you can't control your brand. But basically, it's this idea that there's a lot of learnings from this. There's a lot of people that whether it's in the comments or wherever, that feel like they can't achieve this or wonder why they want to do it. We've all made that plunge into content. I think we should just give some recommendations to marketing people about how or why. And I'll kick in with the most important one, which is like I started making content on Instagram, or actually on TikTok, because I didn't understand it. because I was a marketing leader. And I was like, look, I get performance. I understand retail. I know PR. I know making assets. I know web. I do not understand this new world, and I want to be good at it. And I think that is one of the key things that is like the most important thing to take away here is that if you are in marketing and you want to be good at this, you will never replace actually having made 100 or 1,000 videos.
Okay, this is an extremely important point because I have conversations. I think all of us have conversations with brands on a weekly basis where we talk to them about their content strategy and their social strategy and how to leverage this for marketing. And one of the questions that I always ask, I'm either talking to an individual or I'm talking to a team. And I just ask them, they're talking about TikTok content. And I ask them, as a user, like, do you use TikTok as your primary form of kind of social media? And they're like, no, I'm like more on Instagram or I'm more on YouTube. And I'm like, that's number one. I can give you all of the kind of like tips, hacks, like ways to think about content creation. But unless you natively understand that platform, it is going to be really hard to make content that performs well because there are such distinct nuances between TikTok and Instagram. And even if you go into Twitter or Substack or whatever channel you're on, the content has to change a little bit. The voice you use, like the way that you edit this stuff. So just being in there, being active on the platform is like the baseline.
You're so right. And that's your first point here, Oren, which is like the answers are in the work you're avoiding. Let's go over your other ones, and then we'll dive into each of these. So go ahead, Oren.
So I'll hit this one. This idea is one thing I talk about a lot is that everyone that we're going to see, right? Like you look at like Tate McRae's on SNL this week, right? Like that is a TikTok star turned pop star, right? This is basically everyone that we're going to see, from sports anchors to anyone you're putting on TV, news people, entrepreneurs, most marketing leaders, models, celebrities. It's going to be like, now it's like a split. Like some of them are creators, some of them aren't. People have social media or whatever. It will be 90-10 in 4 years of all of those people, from actors to whatever it is, will have that as one of the driving forces behind whether they are doing what they do or not. And we are like early still on that bell curve. And I think it's an important thing for people to understand is that if you want to do any of those things, and note I include like marketing leadership in there, there is a high percentage chance that will have come from being a creator.
Absolutely, and at a minimum, it won't hurt. Let's go over your other. I just want to give people a preview of the 8 lessons I believe you shared. So we have 1, the answers are in the work you're avoiding. 2, this era is just beginning, which we were just talking about. 3, the algorithm isn't the problem, which is probably one of my favorite.
Again, unless you're making
4,
content about crypto or about cannabis or something like that, the answer is in the content. But yeah, keep going.
Yes.
This is important. This one we all know. The reason we are all bigger creators, like you don't want to be reading the news, is we are all bigger creators because we share ideas and perspectives around things that happen. Versus this person launched this campaign. Here's a breakdown of the 4 things that happened inside of it. That is something anyone can do that is commoditized. But we do more. Yep.
So you don't want to be reading the news. The views don't matter. Email is forever. And not every good creator is good at ads. And then lastly, the marketing and advertising world is in for a shock. Oh, and then you said, actually, lastly, sorry, the world needs more senior level creators. Yeah, which I think is amazing.
Important one. We can dive in. We'll start going into these kind of one by one. Yeah, but maybe we start with this one just because we're there. This is the most important one, in my opinion. Is that I meet a lot of these people all the time, right? Creatives that like are starting to make content, or people hitting me up being like, "How do I get more brand deals?" Who make similar marketing content, and they're all really junior, and that's great. I think content is an amazing thing to do when you are young in your career to help you get to better positions. But if you're older in your career, your content is way more valuable, right? Our content all resonates because we have been inside of these jobs and have run these kind of programs. And if I was making the same stuff when I was 24, it wouldn't be as valuable. Now, again, would it have been a great career tool for me? Sure. But what the world needs is people that are in their 30s and 40s and older to say, hey, I'm going to take my experience online and share that. And especially if you like really build and really know what you're doing. And those are the people that are the least likely to do it or bite the curve or say, I'm too old for it.
Yeah.
Okay, I love this point. One of my favorite follows, and he unfortunately stopped making content because I don't think he was getting the engagement that he wanted, but he was a guy who worked at Body Armor. He was like a seasoned CPG exec. He was probably in his 50s, maybe early 60s, and he would talk about the nuances of building a beverage brand. So if you're anyone in this like CPG category building a beverage brand, you would pay thousands of dollars a month, tens of thousands of dollars a month to get the insight and wisdom from this guy because he was saving you from mistakes. And when you can come to the table with especially very specific and niche knowledge and you're kind of expert in your field, you can find a lot of resonance, assuming that you can kind of package that up in the right format.
Totally. I feel like I stumbled upon this insight, Oren, and I think it's amazing. I happen to have I had my Instagram following was from the early days of early adoption of Square photos. And so I was on the Instagram suggested users list and I kind of kept it going. Nike and Nike PR, like never really loved it. Like the middle managers and PR, like never really understood social. And it was always this thing. And sure, there are people who did stupid stuff on social. They would like leak something or take image in the, world headquarters. But what I realized is I left Nike at kind of this crux moment of, early level executive. And usually what happens is someone leaves and they go to a competing brand. So you make the jump to Adidas or Under Armour for that VP title, or you go over to a smaller brand and get a CMO title. And what I realized is I sort of stumbled into this, that I left that world without going to join someone else where they would muzzle me, or that I had some PR group who didn't understand it. And so I could speak freely and didn't have any allegiances to any brands. And I realized like what a unique voice that was. And so much of content creation and branding is about finding what your distinction is. And I'm with you. And so we have this audience of, I would say, even the brand follower, all of us share in common, like we have an audience of aspiring and established marketers. The aspiring ones want it, and the established ones want to hear about it and talk about this stuff regularly. And we hopefully will get some more experienced marketers who can be sharing their wisdom with the rest of the world because it's needed.
Well, and I think what Ashwin brought up about the CPG guy who stopped making the content because he didn't get the engagement, I want to tap into that in two ways. Like the first is this concept I had earlier of like the views don't matter, right? Like I've been steadily decreasing the amount of views on my content because again, it doesn't matter. I have less views overall now. I think I'm doing like 7 mil a month and used to be like 20 on Instagram, and it doesn't matter because I'm laser focused on, I rather have 30,000 views to marketing decision makers and branding people, and the big view videos like don't matter for me. And this is at a high level, right? But if you were a new person making that content, say that person was getting 3,000 views of video, that's all they really need. There isn't 20,000 people who want to regularly return into someone building a beverage brand. But if you're actually reaching even 400 of those every single video, that is like such a powerful tool. Like that is like an incredible vehicle. But people will say, oh, I'm not going viral, or I didn't get 10,000 followers, I shouldn't continue doing this. And I would say it is radically the opposite. Like you can't look at what we all do, which is a little more mainstream, and assume that that is the playbook. I think the playbook is just getting in front of a regular recurring audience, like making things about what you like. And then Ashwin, I want you to talk about the packaging point of that, because I think that's an interesting idea of like, hey, you actually have to make it good and interesting is like a big thing to think about.
Yeah, I think so I kind of want to talk about this. I want to show a couple of examples too. I think especially where a lot of brands get things wrong, I do these kind of social audits where they actually have good content. They show off their product in good ways. They are creating the meat is there, but the first like 3 to 4 seconds is not there. They either use like corny music and text and this like template. They try to use this like branded template before they lean into the content because they're almost afraid to just let the content shine because it feels off brand. And then what does the grid look like? And I'm just like, get rid of this. Cut the first 3 seconds, get right into the before and after of using your product. I was talking to this skincare brand, and I'm like, that will do quite literally 1,000 times more views than it has right now because it has like 200 views.
Yep.
And the packaging matters so much. We all talk about this, and it feels like such a tired idea to us, but it is still so new to so many creators and marketers, is your visual and verbal hook. Your first 3 seconds of a video matter so much. Just think about how you scroll in your feed. You can't sit there and say, hey guys, so today I want to talk about what, no. Just be like, Pepsi almost killed my brand because we did this. And it's like, okay, you have my attention. Let's now let me see what else you have to say. So the packaging of this stuff, that's what I mean by packaging, and I think it really matters.
It's hard to explain this to people who don't have that extreme attention to detail in social that is required for those first few seconds. And this goes back to our first point, which is it's very hard to do this stuff if you are not native in the platform, understanding the nuances and what actually grabs people's attention. And what you're talking about is something that I keep seeing, I'm realizing more and more, whether it's brands, YouTubers, or people, you hire the celebrity host to do something and you get the like generic track 1257 underneath and they go, hey guys, welcome to this. We're here with AT&T today or whatever, Chase Bank, and this is what we're going to do. And that is exactly what works for a television audience who is sitting on a couch, who had changed to that channel, who is sitting down for programming. Someone who is thumbing every 3 seconds does not have the patience for that. And it also screams, this is sponsored, this is paid, someone has done this. And so you do, in some ways, you need to be a little more gritty, and in others, you have to obsess those first 3 seconds because the rest of it will be great. I'm with you.
To dive into that for a second, the other thing I think people dive into that's a bit of a trap there is the generic content. So I see that we have a lot of marketing creators coming in Cut 30. They're like, oh, I want to talk about email marketing, or I want to talk about like this thing or that thing or this concept or what copywriting X and Y. And it's like, no. No generic concept. No one cares about generic concept, especially from someone new. But what they do care about is a story. This is why you see something like, Olipop's $20 million marketing playbook, or hey, Poppy did this, but here's what this means for influencer marketing overall. It's like anything wrapped in a story is much more conducive for social media. And these are important lessons for people to learn. This is why I encourage, again, the answer is in the work you're avoiding, in that if you go make 100 videos, you're going to figure that out. And I had a really powerful conversation with this guy, Jason. He was an art director at Amazon who did Cut 30. And I interviewed him for this series I'm doing with Air. And he was talking about, hey, he started making content. He was an art director at Amazon. And he was like, oh, he had that aha moment of like, oh, the hooks, my stuff succeeds on social, but I make ads all day, right? Like I direct ads. And then I keep looking for like, well, no one's talking about first frame. No one's talking about hook strategy. If I just do exactly what I'm doing on short form, and it's like turn my insight into a visual plus my ads will be better. And that is like the biggest reason why I encourage all these marketing people to do that. Is it's not just about understanding Instagram, TikTok. This is every piece of media. Like the hook strategy, the retention strategy is important.
Okay, this I want to dial into this even more because I think the reason why we talk about creating a lot of content and the hooks matter and how you need to be, Jordan, you said attention to detail, but here's what it really is. Every piece of content that we put out every single day, and we've both done this for now years now, right? So we have like several thousand data points coming in, showing us exactly where people fall off of videos, which videos perform well, which videos don't. We'll often post something on TikTok and then we'll change the hook and then post it on Instagram and see how they do. So immediately, every single day, we are getting better subconsciously at thinking about how to get people's attention. And when you have that feedback mechanism, you can make progress a lot faster. But say you grow up and you're kind of just making, 2-minute video spots for TV, you actually don't have a great feedback mechanism outside of your peers just saying, hey, that's like a really visually stunning ad. And like that won awards at Cannes. Great, but was it effective? You really have kind of no idea with that. So I think that's a really interesting insight that maybe this Amazon guy kind of like figured out as part of doing Cut 30. It's like, hey, what is that first frame of the TV ad?
And even that nature of a visual hook, like I'm doing this massive audit right now of every major cosmetics brand. I'm doing like a huge brandscape of all of their social, and I'm ranking it in tiers as part of like a client project. And one of the things that stood out is that there's like 3 brands that understand visual hooks. There's the brand, like there was one brand that had like, it was like, they had a lollipop on the lips being like, I want this color. Visual hook, then shows the color. Then the same thing with, I want this color, and it was like a chocolate covered strawberry. Like little things like that, or like the things were trapped in ice cubes. There was like maybe 2 or 3 brands on this entire brandscape that understood the quick, like basically cheap visual hook Like, it's not elegant. It's not some macro shot. It's not some big thing. They are just grabbing attention like immediately. And when you look at, this is one of the most social savvy industries in the world. And when you look at, there's only a handful of brands that understand that. And they rely instead on creators that understand that, like, showcases this gap. This is why I find it really interesting to read Rachel Carton's newsletter. She has a newsletter called Link in Bio for social media managers, because it's so obviously from the position of a social media manager, which is a super valuable perspective. It talks through really interesting things they deal with, but they think of it so differently from, as a creator, I always look at that being like, okay, I'll just hook. Like, all these things could just be better if everything was about a hook. And I think that's like one of those worthwhiles, again, once you've made those videos, especially when you're not just talking head. Like, I make a lot of content styles. I make vlogs. I'm doing one-shot videos. I'm doing whatever, because this exact same reason, what works. And I think I would look at that too is, like, my content is more experimental, I feel like, than most people's. And a lot of it flops more than most people who are consistent, because you want to be experimental. But that is your job as a marketer. It isn't, I'm going to put up 200,000 views every time. It's like, build your toolkit and learn it.
So on this, I think this is actually an interesting segue into kind of like styles and series and building new accounts. So Oren's kind of talking about being experimental with his content now, which is almost like a privilege afforded by building a strong base that kind of like recognizes your voice or recognizes the account, the avatar, and like you've built goodwill with Instagram and TikTok and these channels that, like, hey, you can take that quote unquote risk and do something very different.
Not so much for TikTok, but yeah.
Yeah, not maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just teasing. Hey, you know how it goes.
But we talk about this idea. Of, here's a mistake that a lot of brands make, where they will say, hey, we need to fill our content calendar. We're going to have 9 pieces of UGC from totally different creators and faces, all with different styles and editing. We're going to post that on our feed for 9 days of the month. Then we're going to have 10 different posts that are like text-based, like carousels with like audio over them. Then the remaining 5 are going to be like notes from our founders. And then the other 5 are going to be like memes from our marketing team. Great. When you look at that account, there is no visual continuity. There is no audio continuity. It's like, I'm just getting, it could be a For You page just of different content, right? So it's like you are basically signifying what you do is you kind of confuse the algorithm where it doesn't know what kind of creator you are, who the audience is that you're trying to hit, what type of content they're going to like. And then you do that for 2 months and it's just like, hey, our content isn't performing. Social media isn't like a strategy for us. Let's go back on the paid side and burn $2 million on Facebook every single month. But it's like, hey, if you just invested in this and like did it right, you could get much more reach and much more success instead of like this crazy strategy.
Yeah, and I think this is one of my favorite thing that I've come around to in the last year, Oren. The algorithm isn't the problem, because I think a lot of people would build out a social calendar like that, and then they would say, hey, we had a plan, we did all this, the content was good in a vacuum. Yeah, the algorithm's been really tough lately, or yeah, the algorithm hates me, or the algorithm whatever. And it's like, I like watching Maseri each week. I think that man is like paid a lot of money to just take darts and arrows.
Yeah.
But he has a bunch of people who just have this victim stance of like, well, I don't see my friends, or I don't see the people who opted in to follow me. And fine, that's a case to be made, but that case was made like 5 years ago. It's time to just make better content. You have to evolve. And like I said, I started this making square photos of sneakers and coffee and skylines. And today I am a talking head talking about marketing and branding. And you just have to evolve and shift with the content landscape. I didn't want to be a talking head. I did not want to do vertical video. It would be so much easier if I could point a camera at a building and still get views and grow. But that's not what it is. You've got to grow and evolve.
Well, and the evolution is important, because you'll talk to that algorithm points a lot of people. Oh, well, we used to post these videos and then now they just get way less views. And it's like, yeah, because everything's getting better. I think that's the biggest thing to notice, is that creators and content on these platforms is consistently getting better. So if you expect the same results from doing the same thing, it's not going to happen. You have to be evolving at the same level. And I think we all deal with that. And like how we even got to this point, like I'm posting these carousels because I realized like I posted like 7 carousels last year. And I was like, look, this is just as important as Reels. And I need to be doing these I'm trying to hit a 1-to-1 ratio. I'm happy with a 2-to-5 ratio. But that's like part of evolution. And without that, like that, I would be stagnant. And so I think that's just another useful thing to learn, is that whether it's testing new things or just improving the things you already do. And improving those is like, that's like a toolkit, going back and like, how do I make this a stronger hook? How do I make the visuals stronger? How do I make my editing better? How are my ideas better? Like all of those are things that any brand or creator can take back and work on.
Yeah, it's yes.
So if you were, I want to get some kind of direct, if you guys are, if you were a marketer, you know, whether you're senior or mid-level and you want to start diving into this, like where would you begin?
Yeah, this is kind of to your point. The marketing and advertising world is in for a shock, which I enjoyed. You said so many teams will still have no one who actually lives and breathes content, and content is everything.
Yeah. Well, my point on that one real quick, and I'll circle back on, was that like what I see a lot is tactical things. Being like, oh, our brand has 1 million followers but hasn't launched our broadcast channel, which will notify every one of those 1 million followers. Or hey, we're posting shorts from our YouTube videos, but we aren't tagging the related video on YouTube, which is like a signaler and a thing that generates more views on long form. They're missing the tactic level. And you learn that tactic level by being a creator, because there's no master class out there for brand marketers on it. And that's what I think those people really need. To what we were talking about photo shoots earlier, because we all have these big shoots we're going on. And it's just like that being second nature, that those people are like, everyone shoots BTS content. My biggest thing I've been talking about on these fucking shoots is like, you shoot all the content, no one does anything with it. If you don't have the hook and the shot list of the BTS before you go in, it's kind of useless, right? It's like, it needs to be like, we're doing this concept for BTS. Like, it's little changes like that you know from actually being on these shoots that like make the difference.
Man, okay. So 2 things. 1, I'm going to answer the question, but 2, I'm thinking about this conversation I was having with American Express about their content, where they disassembled a out of commission Boeing 747, cut out metal pieces and turned them into limited edition cards. And I was like, that's a phenomenal concept. Like that content should print. That could print for over a month. There's so many hooks and angles through which we could take that. What did you guys do with that? And then they show me the videos. Both of these videos had like 7,000 views. And it's like some highly produced B-roll with a drone flying over a plane. And then like, it's just like ASMR-y, but not really. You just see a guy like soldiering the plane. And I'm like, dude, in the first 3 seconds, we have no context for what we're watching here. Like, am I watching?
If the hook was literally just like, we made black cards out of an airplane wing, haha.
100 million views. 100 million views, you know, it's like, it's preposterous. And again, that's like going back to how much packaging matters. But going back to this like more important idea that I think we're all talking about is, what do you do if you are one of these brands? And I think the first thing is kind of like a structural conversation that you have to have internally, which is, you can't have 5 people in who are like marketing managers who have like 95 other things on their plate, each try to own social for like 5% of their time. And then weekly have one meeting where they're like, hey, what content should we come up with? And then 5 people generate the idea, and then like one person posts it, and then another person follows up on the reporting. You need kind of like one dedicated person who is kind of living and breathing it for your brand through and through, end to end, in order to actually see kind of significant improvement and progress there. And so what I like is, as a brand, you need to have this conversation internally. Okay, is there someone in-house that we can have do that? If not, then let's go hire a dedicated creator to do this. And like, this is their main MO.
Yeah, I would say one of the things that has become abundantly clear to me is that you need a creative. So I think if I were on a marketing team right now, advertising team, I think we've finally gotten where they realize they need to hire creators, but all of us have been there. They bring you in for the day. They're like, hey, welcome. We'll get you what's happening here. I would argue that you need to have a creator or someone on retainer or on a part-time who you can be reviewing marketing plans and shoots with, and having them in the upfront so that you could they could help you with those tiny little tweaks that you need. Because oftentimes, like you said, this airplane stuff is something that could have been saved early on if you just had a creator understand the like very simple nuances that need to happen. Oren, you say no?
I completely agree. Yeah. This is kind of like sort of, I think, what I've ended up doing like in some of these companies. And I think every one of these companies should hire this. And basically, it's never going to be full time. Creators don't want to work like that. It's also the one day is too little. It's like, cool, 25% time, 30% time. And the real key is like, work with the social media manager one-on-one for tactics. Like, hey, attach the YouTube videos to this. Did you launch a broadcast channel? Are you doing too many formats? Whatever it is. Like that recurring conversation. can't be present on all the campaign shoots and help on the shot list, and then hook review. Like, I cannot, like what we just did around the airplane wing, right? Every week that creator is in hook review, and it's like, what content is coming out? What is the hook? What is the visual? What is the text? What is the audio? Like, what are they doing? And just workshopping that to be better. And because if I had been in that meeting and I was like, no, you got to listen to me. It needs to be, we made black cards out of an airplane wing, haha, as the text, and there's 4 shots. This would have millions of views, right? This video looks like it did pretty good, but I'm just saying that's the kind of thing I think building that framework in is really useful for, and just get a creator who cares to do that.
Also, can't we don't know if there's paid behind it, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the other thing too. The one thing I do want to note again, when we go back to this concept of like why marketing people should be in this, is that content impacts everything. So even if your organic is bad, and this is the case, like I mentioned, I'm doing a lot in cosmetics right now. And it's like, your organic content is only going to go so far. You are going to be seeding hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of influencer kits. You are going to be paying influencers extremely frequently, and you're going to be running mass level of performance ads. Guess what? If that person who knows hooks and is on if you are a marketer who knows that stuff and you're contributing to all of those things, all of it will be better. And those have massive lift, even above and beyond organic social, like the ripple effects of this. Everything is a short form video or a short form carousel. Everything. Every performance ad, every influencer post, every seeded thing, like just have input on that from actually doing it. So I get lit about this.
I mean that is such an important point, and this was a conversation that was really apparent to me. So I've really work in the stage of like 0 to 1, right? Like building startups, going from like idea to launch, getting them to some product like traction. That's like just been the space that I've operated in. So when I work with some of these larger companies that have like all of these different departments that don't speak to each other, it's almost like I've never thought in such a siloed way about a brand and marketing, right? I'm looking at the P&L, I'm looking at the paid, I'm looking at the organic social, I'm writing like web page copy. All of this stuff is interconnected. And so when I'm kind of working with a brand and we're creating really like highly performing content on organic social, right? Get 20 million views off of that. Immediately I'm like, great, what did that do for Amazon sales? What did that drive in our traffic? What did that drive in Shopify? And I asked people on the team and they're like, oh, like how would we get that data? And I'm like, you don't have access to this data on like a day, and it's 400 person company.
Yeah, this gets back to like EMV as a fucking metric and shit like that. But yeah.
and I'm like, please, we have to get this data. So they go on this like goose hunt to like get this data for me. They return the data a week later, and lo and behold, there's a massive spike on Amazon, a massive spike in conversions and paid views. So I'm like, great, that's a piece of content that is going to perform well. We should put paid behind it. And they're like, okay, like on TikTok. And I'm like, you should do it on TikTok, but you should also run it as an ad on Facebook. And they're like, oh, well, that's our performance marketing agency. And I'm like, great, how do we get to them? Then we have to like go through 5 other people to get to the performance marketing agency to brief them that like, we should be running this. And then the performance marketing agency is like, oh, hey, we have our campaigns and our fucking blah, blah, blah.
Bro,
like, don't even. And then the figure I deal with now, I've been piecing through a bunch of those things. And then it's like, hey, we know what we got to do. We got to repeat it. That same piece of content, we're going to make the same fucking piece of content again with a 10% tweak, and we're going to do that 2 weeks later and then run this whole thing again because this is a machine. And then there are people who are like, you know.
You're giving me PTSD, bro. I mean, to get anything done,
there's actually a really important insight for marketers too, which is repeating concepts that work and just shifting them ever so slightly. For whatever reason, brands and marketers are very scared of like, hey, but what if we make 10 videos in a row that are kind of similar? It's going to hit a new audience every time, and it's going to convert like
or at least if you're on a launch cadence. A lot of these brands are on a launch cadence, so they're launching new products all the time, monthly, every 6 weeks, whatever it is. It's like, okay, what worked last time? The top 3 winners. We're just gonna remake that shit, and we're gonna do the new campaign and the new content plan. We are gonna repeat the winners, and guess what? The winners slide out after 6 or 7 times. Great, but you then have that repeat. But like that is how social planning works. I know we've cannibalized this episode of this, but like this is the like super crucial alpha like inside that.
It's true. I think we're all passionate about it because we've seen both sides, you know, having been in a really large company and seen all those agencies and all that. I do think marketers are attracted to the novel. And, you know, internally, you need to be able to say, we did this new thing, or we were the first brand who did this, or we were the first one to do that. And I think there is a time and place for that. And so often we didn't just play the hits.
And I want to get this. I did this video about Aritzia the other week. And this was like the key point where I was like, hey, Aritzia, amazing brand, sells a lot of stuff. You know what they do? They are behind the bell curve. They go TSA VIN videos. Those have been printing the last 6 months. Run it. They're going like big 3D animation. Every brand's done that. Perfect. They're noting that it's just take the proven stuff. Most brands are like, oh, well, we can't do it. Some other brand did it. They're like, oh, has 10 brands done it? Now we're putting it on the list. Like now it's a proven winner. And guess what? Their hit rate and nothing is, it's all like B plus, just fucking runs. And that is a completely okay place for like probably 90% of brands to live.
Yeah. Let me ask you this question though, Oren, because we have done a segment where, Brat Summer trend is dead. And once you've hit this trend, you're okay. All right. You're too late to this party. Okay. Now it's annoying that you did this and there's blowback. So how do you balance that fine line if you're a brand?
There's a difference between cultural trend and content style. I think is the biggest thing that we'll look at. Like something that's like a Brat Summer or a moment in time versus a type of video is the way I'd look at it, right? Because I think you could still do the like any of these video formats where the one that everyone's running now is like when someone throws something and it like holds in space.
Yeah.
That's still going to work 4 months down the line.
I know.
At the end of the day, it's still like a visual hook that will work versus if it was something that's super timely, right? Like where it's like the Brat thing. Like again, it's a cultural moment versus video format is where I draw the line. So I'm talking about like formats.
Yeah, good point. Speaking of that, I was in
brand advocacy, right? Like a brand that is well regarded, like knowing where your customer is on the bell curve. This is what I usually talk about. It was like, hey, if your customer is an early adopter and they expect early adoption, that's one thing. But know where your customers is. Most people aren't that. If your customer's on the back half of the bell curve, which again for Aritzia, it's like
Aritzia,
want to look good. Like they're there, run them the content that's for them.
Yeah, that's a good point. To close this out, I was in Florida last week. I almost did a throw the box thing at the head, doing some social content, but I also drove by a billboard that said "not demure, not mindful" with an arrow down pointing at their store.
In a Buc-ee's.
I won't tell you what kind of store it was, but anyway, okay. These are all incredible salient points, whether you're a marketer or a creator, and I just think they're well done. We should do more of this wisdom share. Any final thoughts here on this wisdom?
Do we want to hit it? We got like 10 minutes. We want to hit any news?
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to segue to. Let's close this out and we'll move on.
We'll talk about one of the greatest collaborations of all time.
Well, do you want to hit a question from the congregation, Ashwin, or should we go straight into news?
We will do. Let's do news and then we'll close out with the question.
Okay. What's up first this week? What is the collaboration of all time that you're referencing, Ashwin?
Well, Jordan, I'm sure you're a noted Jason Mraz fan.
Indeed.
So we've got Jason Mraz, who I've probably not thought about in 15 years now, collaborating with Perfect Bar, also a brand that I have not thought about for 15 years now. And in the world of CPG and kind of pseudo-celebrity creators, this is one of the funniest ones I have come across. This their chocolate and raspberry with the fedora on it.
A new flavor infused with the magic of his music. Let's go.
Absolutely incredible. I have not known him, and again, maybe this is not my audience and demo. I have not thought of him since that song "I'm Yours" came out in 2007.
Yeah, the fact that you can name a Jason Mraz song is actually impressive.
I mean that was big. I
conceptually know he exists. That's where we're at on the zeitgeist for me.
I did guess 2003. I'm actually I'm pleased that I at least guessed that.
I would just love.
Hat? Is that like his thing?
Yeah, he like wears this fedora, but it's like it's not even that iconic.
How is this still on the? All right, anyway, I'm not going to get into fedora talk.
So I'm. You're in the boardroom. How do you arrive at an insight like this? That we are Perfect Bar. We're thinking about our collaborations for the year. We've got to do something with Jason Mraz. Is this another case of
my man in the comments who's like, did they confuse Jason Mraz with Jason Momoa? It's actually hilarious.
I think maybe there's a lesson from the marketing confessional this week where it's like, who knows? Maybe the CMO is just like a huge Jason Mraz fan from back in the day.
Well, it looks like Jason says Jason Mraz is a huge Perfect Bar fan.
Well, I think he would have to be.
But also, but let's take this a step back. If you're a Perfect Bar, who I've never heard of, sounds like they are a thing.
Is this
a bad thing for them? Like versus doing nothing?
No, I don't think this is a bad thing. Not at all. I think there's probably some insight where like, hey, the Perfect Bar demo is like people in their 40s, 50s, 60s who are like buying this product at, whatever Sprouts or like natural grocer near them. I think they're quite like a very substantial business. So maybe they're like, hey, for our audience and our demo, like this is just gonna work.
Jason Mrazberry. Oh my
Jason
God.
Mrazberry. I mean, now look, we've seen this done where I think in our first episode, Oren, we were doing what was the Pilates, not the Pilates, the dance Zumba had a throwback of the artist who hadn't been seen in 20 years, which I think was kind of a funny bit.
Sorry, I thought Jason Mraz was like a heartthrob. This is even more confusing.
I mean, he might have been 20 years ago.
Let's see the engagement. So he has 1 million followers. He's got 1.4 million followers. I mean, to me, it's like if you were doing kind of a tongue-in-cheek, funny bit from somebody, but it seems like they've kind of.
He seems like a nice guy.
Yeah, it seems like a super nice guy, but I don't know what we're doing. Anyway,
Next week we have David Barr.
Is it better than nothing? That's usually my question on the collaboration. Is this better than not collabing at all? Thoughts?
we're talking about it, I guess. But
I mean, just curious. Ashwin, you look like you're deeply pensive. Is this better than not collabing at all?
Is it better than not collabing? It's just, I guess the question is, what is like the opportunity cost, right? There's like cost to producing all of
Yeah,
this.
but it costs the same amount as their existing Raspberry packaging.
Sure.
They cut Jason Mraz. If they paid Jason Mraz $75,000 for this, I would kind of be shocked.
He's probably got some like royalty deal on sold or something.
Okay, no, he's got a fridge. He's a recurring influencer for Perfect Bar. Or is this the Perfect Bar Instagram?
This is a Perfect Bar
Okay,
Instagram.
I was looking at what
I was looking at what they're doing previously. If they're doing like other funny collabs, I don't see that. But I recognize this terrible bar that is in the airport Starbucks every time, and is usually a desperation play for me. Sometimes
Wawa,
that peanut butter.
It's almost so I think like it's, if the answer is like, hey, is it better than not doing a collab? I think it's like, yeah, maybe it's better than not doing a collab. But the fact that you say, hey, we're going to go do a collab and we're going to spend time and money to bring this to life, whether that's the engagement, the packaging design, the print, all of the promo that you're going to do around it. Okay, in that world of other collabs that you could do, are there better ones? And I think the answer is yes.
So which one would you do if you were doing a better collab? Say this cost them, again, doesn't cost anything for the packaging, where they could do another cent or two to do a fucking run of an existing sleeve, and Jason Mraz cost them $75,000. Who would you spend that with? Because I'm starting to come around on this campaign.
Let me make one case here. Clearly,
I've seen Perfect Bar. I'm like, okay.
Glancing at their Instagram, they look like they're serving millennial moms. So Jason Mraz might just be the perfect heartthrob from their throwback. It's a stretch.
Maybe. But... maybe it is perfect. Maybe it absolutely is perfect. I just don't know
I don't know if it's perfect or not, but again, I'm like, who else are we getting? Can they get Kevin from Epic Gardening for that same budget? Probably not.
Right.
What are they going to do with Kevin from Epic Gardening?
Say what?
What are they going to do with Kevin from Epic Gardening?
Do a garden bar.
Yeah.
And he's going to get way more views.
Organic.
And he's equally as much of the millennial mom heartthrob.
Indeed.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, first homie that popped to mind.
I was thinking Kevin from Backstreet Boys, to be honest, would be the other one.
If this led off a washed series where the next guy is Kevin from Backstreet Boys, and then it's like Lance Bass's brother, like that actually would be hilarious.
All right, hear me out. Thorin Bradley, the guy who chops shit?
Yeah, the homie.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thorin Bradley collab, okay?
They can't get him for Jason Mraz cost.
He is chopping. He is chopping the other protein bars. Stops before perfect. Other protein bars are chopped. Perfect is perfect. And then there's some
he drinks his C4. He looks revealingly at the camera and moves on. Yeah, but I think Thor costs a lot more than Jason Mraz.
Yeah.
But I agree. If I was picking somebody, and if you want to target millennial moms with a heartthrob, he's probably a better choice. And it's got like the axe and like the blueberry. That's just actually kind of hot. Thornberry?
Right.
Is that
enough? We've gotten our perfect bar pick.
Thornberry.
Perfect. Well done, I suppose. I don't know. Okay, what else?
Yeah, I don't know about that either, but here we are. So, okay, collab. That was big collab news. What else we got this week?
We're gonna see. We'll see it on Bima's channel pretty soon. The collab lab, Perfect Bar, and Jason Mraz.
Yeah. So we were in the alternate in the Brand Brothers throwback group chat. Ashwin was scripting out how Bima would approach collaborations like this, like from a more
So
CPG
good.
perspective, which I really think Bima should do because I can't watch another video about fucking sneakers. I'm not gonna lie, it's not that interesting. Like we've already covered the whole gambit. Like how much is really happening. I really would like Bima to break down the Perfect Bar Jason Mraz collab. Like it would be excellent.
And I'd love for him to do it, especially as like he's not in that world of CPG again, just like from a consumer standpoint. I think he'd have amazing
Like
commentary.
what is this guy? Yeah,
It would be really funny.
Bima, if you're listening, you heard it here.
So, Oren, should we not talk about Luka return to the Lakers and the Jordan?
I'll talk about Luka all day. You know,
Okay.
So Schwinnebago and I have been really talking about the impact on Necht and Reeves in the separate chat and like in their assist levels,
absolutely.
their career progression.
Ashwin, what are your thoughts on the
How
ball
Lakers are gonna
movement?
get the cap.
Yeah, allowing Luka to play the one and LeBron allowing him to be more of a
the
ball
second
handler.
apron implications across the league alone.
Really mind blowing. Ashwin, your thoughts? Not enough
So
time.
look,
Okay.
so one of Luka's I think this is the first game against the Mavs, right? Luka pays for parking. I can't begin to explain to you in LA if you're attending a Lakers game and someone pays for your parking, the amount of goodwill that buys. And
Indeed.
it was like from Serbia with love or like whatever, like tagged on
Yeah,
the stuff is so good.
The bumper stickers, really good. So Jordan Brand, this is all Jordan Brand in support of Luka. They did free parking courtesy of Luka. They did some bumper stickers for him that were really funny. So this is tough for me to see, but I wanted to highlight a couple of things here. One, why would they be going all in on this? It's mainly because Jordan Brand basically, look, all marketing is looking for storytelling. And when you can do something that taps in and moves people emotionally, this is now a storyline versus kind of Luka before in Dallas. He was incredible and his performance was really good. And he does have more than most. The Jordan Brand CMO, she DM'd me after I did a post on that. And I said, look, they've done more with him in the last 3 weeks in LA than probably all of last year in Dallas. I'm just being a bitter Dallas fan. She's like, actually, Luka was the #1 featured person on our channel last year, probably behind Jason Tatum because he won the championship.
But rightfully so in that, in that, like, this was the most viewed basketball game of the season was the Lakers Mavs, 2.5 million on TNT.
Yeah. Which is big, and fans are looking for storylines. So the storyline of like this thwarted star who's been wronged and is now going to the biggest Hollywood city. The Jordan Brand is salivating at this. First, because the marketing world is, Los Angeles is the center of marketing and media, but also they've got this storyline that is also very Jordan-esque. Like Jordan thrives on being every athlete of his in history always is looking for the underdog mentality. Like I've been wronged in some way.
I have a massive problem with this. And if we can throw the sneakers back up, because Luka has been wronged, not by the Mavs, but by the Jordan sneaker design team. Like this is the problem. This is great marketing. This is great for Luka. This is good for Jordan Brand raising awareness, but they are raising awareness for what we have here, which as a sneaker consumer, a Luka fan, also a Jason Tatum fan, like there is so little. They are doing so little. Like imagine trying to convince your kid to buy a Luka sneaker who loves Luka. They'd be like, no, I'm good.
I can report from an 8-year-old
if you're doing all this
standpoint.
good marketing with no product, like that is the issue. And so we can't they can't like break the shoe surgeon out of like the dark vault below the earth that like he's being kept working on Jake Paul outfits to like work on this, or like bring the A team. Like we're getting the Travis Scott team and we're gonna bring them over to the Luka for a month. Like we're doing all of this for this, which has got to be one of the literally most atrocious. This is a crime. This is a crime.
Oren, do you mess with any of these?
No.
This is the Luka 1, 2, 3, and 4 over the last 4 seasons.
Like the 1 and 2, you're like, okay, maybe something's happening here, and then it just falls completely off. But like, no, they don't have potential as a real silhouette. Like the 2 is the closest to something.
You don't like the 3?
No. Look at this. Look at that. What are we doing? My litmus test on this is the only guys who still buy basketball shoes, like washed millennial guys who are still playing on a regular game is like number one, and then kids. Like your kid
kids
is
number
fan of
one.
the player.
Like, kids is number 1.
Yeah, I'm not saying. I'm just saying number 1 and 2, like the 2 I'm outlining. Like those are the 2 people I feel like who are the consumer groups, right? Yeah. And I don't see this appealing to either of them. And like you got to get at least one, right? Because look at the kids. The kids know what they're wearing, and also like they have the Travis Scott team. That is right there.
Yeah, but
They are doing
to
all
Ashton's
kinds
point,
of shoes.
Travis Scott team is entirely separate from the performance basketball team.
Cool.
So
Bring them in. Doesn't matter. You
I
have
know.
guys who know how to design sneakers that look good.
Well, in fairness, all the Travis Scotts that are cool are just retros that were designed.
No, they have
30
all
years
these
ago.
alternate styles. I was introduced to the full canon at Complex Con, and I was like, cool. All the hot, like you can get to the retros now, but like still, like you can do colorways, you can do whatever. Give him something worth buying. Again, even if it's a flip of whatever, just give him something worth buying.
You like his new anyway. Look, yeah, I like some of those Lukas in terms of performance basketball shoes. I think a lot of those are actually decent, but
They haven't had a good performance basketball shoe since like the Kyries. Let's just.
but the performance basketball shoe scene is really, really rough these days. And yeah, I will say, Kyrie. Speaking of Kyrie, the last thing on this is Kyrie's debut shoe with Anta was really good and is getting some market share from local kids. I'll say that. My kid went.
And guess who? And guess what? Guess who's making all the customs and all the things around that and is out there? Is the motherfucking shoe surgeon. Sorry,
I know.
like,
well, when you're in a
these
lawsuit,
people exist. There is a canon of a world of Mr. Bailey and and these guys and and the teams that are working on Adidas and like that one good guy that Reebok has, and like you can get these people.
Yep. All right. Any other news this week for news and marketing, CPG, anything?
Can't believe I got more fired up about Luka than social media. This is where
I know
this is
you
how
really
offensive this
did.
whole thing has been.
I'm here for it. It's a longer discussion, but
What else did we see? I mean, we have all these brands now. We had Coca-Cola getting into the Olipop and Poppy wars, the prebiotic soda wars. Sparkling Ice also got in there with like, it's called like pop soda. So the space.
Also, who just cut? Didn't one of these companies just cut their entire innovation team? Right?
General Mills.
General Mills?
Yeah.
This is the problem, right? Like these people are finally debuting their prebiotic sodas, and like look, this at least came out with a unified brand identity. They have distribution. They're going to try and get some market share. Like this is the kind of thing that can get some market share just by purely flexing distribution, and maybe won't ever overtake the competitors, but at least get them in the category. But like anyone else is like just launching it now is like, good God.
I mean, hold on. Going back to this point of unified brand identity. So there's like this Simply brand at large, which makes juice. They make orange juice. That's what they're probably most notable for. They also make spiked seltzer, and now they have a prebiotic soda. So I don't know how.
I didn't know they had the spiked seltzer. Like the juice combo, I was like, but I was like, you know what? Whatever. It's a known quantity.
Yeah, it's a known quantity. There's also a little bit of confusion here for me where it's like, okay, if I recognize Simply from the juice, then I see this and it's like, oh, with real fruit juice. And it's like, it at the bottom says like juice squeeze. It's like, well, what is this? Is it soda or is it juice? So I think there's like confusing things here.
Because you're competing with Ridge Rush and root beer and cream soda. I go buy an Olipop cream soda, right?
Of course.
So there's not really a competitive item to this.
Of course, there is. I think last week we talked about Quaker Oats and Pepsi getting into the oat milk category once Oatly was there. Someone was like, hey, we spent like $20 million over 18 months bringing this to life. We called it an oat beverage. We had all of the wrong cues. We were talking about heart healthy versus flavor
cues. Put a Quaker on that motherfucker.
And it's like, hey, we'll just put a Quaker on this and we'll bring it to market. And there is like one audience that firmly believes like, hey, a big company, like they're not stupid. Like they know what they're doing. Like they're going to win for all of these reasons. To which I'm like, have you like worked at a big company before? Have you seen how some of these places operate?
Have you
and
ever
there's
been in a meeting with anyone from Accenture?
and it's like, sure, they may find some success with this, right? For every like failure, there's a success from like the big CPG side. But let's not just say because Pepsi did this, they're going to crush and absolutely kill it. Like there is an equal possibility that in 18 months, like they completely shut down Simply Pop.
Yeah, well, and I do think the way that this has some level of potential is that it's still about shelf placement. You go to Olipop and Poppy and stuff right now, they have their own shelf in the majority of stores, whether it's specialty grocer or real grocer. They're basically getting like an oddball end cap that's becoming the prebiotic soda category. If Simply Pop gets placed next to Coca-Cola and is in a traditional aisle and becomes an available alternative, then you can start getting like single-digit % customer increases, and they can build into the category from there. But if they try to place it next to Olipop in this new prebiotic section, they're going to get murdered.
Yes. And I think even there, let's talk about a company that we work with that's also a sponsor of this podcast, which is called Platform. So Platform is basically the biggest CPG brokerage, right? If you want to get your product on store shelves in Walmart, Costco, Erewhon, etc., you go through a firm like them to negotiate on your behalf, understand where they're going to place you in stores, make sure that all of your packaging and your product assortment is retail ready, which is a very different world than just selling online. And so to this point that Oren's kind of making about, hey, where Simply Pop ends up on shelves matters a lot, you have to kind of negotiate that on behalf of your brand, right? You have to say, no, we deserve to be in this aisle, in this category, not this other place that you want to stick us. So when you have seasoned kind of like CPG brokerage guys like this coming in and they have those deep connections and relationships, they can argue those things on your behalf and put you in higher level categories. They can create new categories for you in some instances. So these are fantastic. You really can't go into retail and succeed there, whether you're a new brand or an existing brand in retail, without going through, one of the players like these. And these guys are just like the best as far as I know.
Let's go. You can find more info about them in the link in our description.
Absolutely. Thanks to Platform.
All right. Any parting shots? Any rare collabs?
You want to hit your question from the congregation, Ashwin?
Yes, we'll hit our last question here. And so as we solicit marketing confessionals, I think between the three of us, we always get questions, usually from recent college grads or people who are like in mid-level career in marketing, asking us questions. So we'll do a little segment here. This question is, I'm a recent graduate working at a marketing agency as a project manager. I feel like I'm wasting my potential in this area, and I would love to move into the more creative and strategic area of the business. Just very lost right now on how to transition into a more creative space and seeking out advice on how I can branch out. Would love some feedback from you guys. What's your take on this?
So I'm lost right now. And sorry, let me see that again.
So they're a project manager. They want to get into more strategic or creative areas of the business. And so what it sounds like is they're probably just like managing process, following up with people, making sure like delivery is hit, where they're like, I don't want to manage this. I want to do it, or I want to be like higher level thinking about the strategy.
If you have shoots or anything at all, if you're doing campaigns or you're involved in any of that, I'd be like volunteering to be on those. Be like, hey, I'll be there for the day. I'll hold the lights. I'll do the whatever. So you can try and get in the mix there. And then, we touched on this earlier, but I'd be making content because guess what? If you were that PM and you had 25,000 Instagram followers, all of a sudden you'd be on the social team in like 6 months.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So true. I believe in careers. I do think you can shift over to other organizations. To our points earlier, they are very siloed sometimes. And so if you're the project manager and you want to get on the creative business, so let's say you're in operations, I see this a lot, or someone would be in operations over in finance and they want to get closer to brand marketing. Then you may just shift from, if you're on an operations team and you're functionally sound in operations and finance, then maybe you start looking for roles in operations over on the creative or the brand or the marketing side or the advertising team. And so you can make one step over. And I think a lot of times we make the decision, we feel like we make a leap all the way over into the creative business, but oftentimes you need to take a foundation of your competency and then bridge that gap. So finance operations, get over into creative operations, and then creative operations into actual creative is a simpler step than going from finance operations to creative. So I think one case is to be making content. Of course, all three of us are always going to harp on that, but volunteering is also a big thing. We talked about this last week on our portfolio, doing spec work, raising your hand. We had stretch assignments at Nike. I don't know if y'all are familiar with those, but it's basically saying once you've been in your role and you've demonstrated competency and you can do it, not in your sleep, but you can do it, you can volunteer to take on the roles and responsibilities of another role that's maybe open on a team that you're interested in. And you have to get approval from your manager, and then you get approval from that other manager. And a lot of times in a place where maybe you're in a hiring freeze or they want to test you out and see if you're able to do this in a role. I had this on every single one of my roles at Nike. So once I got the Econ role, I would raise my hand and I became the stretch football marketing specialist in Texas. And then once I was on the brand manager in North America for football, I became the North America sportswear manager on sneakers and collaborations. And sometimes that leads directly to a role. Sometimes you just get really good experience, and it can be a great opportunity. So I love this, passionate about this. And the last thing I would just say is if you're inside at a brand, maybe you go to a creative agency and you do operations at a creative agency where you're going to be doing more and more creative.
Okay, smaller companies, huge unlock to that, right? Like I worked at content marketing on like a 3-person marketing team that worked close with the sales team, and then all of a sudden I was in the middle of the sales team, and like and physical space. Like I don't know if you're in office or not, but like get in office in companies that are like 50 to 100 people, and you'll be very surprised where that can take you.
Yeah. I think to Jordan's point, Jordan kind of outlined like, hey, here's how we do it at Nike. They have all this structure around allowing people to get like lateral and upwards movement. Say this person's working at a smaller marketing agency. I think there it's like, hey, there might not be that structure, but if you're working on the project management side, but you also like manage or kind of like oversee some of these creatives, reach out to them and just be like, hey, can I understand like exactly what every part of your day and week looks like? Okay, how can I help support that? Oh, when you are designing X, Y, and Z, like you're crafting these campaigns, you need like help putting together mood boards. Great. Let me like just do that. Let me offer to do that for free for you so I can become an asset to you so that you can then vouch for me to like move out of my PM role into a more creative role. That's one thing that I would say. The second thing I would say is like, especially in the creative world, like I think Oren, you probably deal with this a lot. Like people like just at 23 years old want to be a creative director. And it's like, dude, what are you directing? Like you actually have no skills. Like you have to build foundational skills.
The advice I have for them, the same every time, is I'm like, hey, you need to go spend multi-year stints in a few things. Be like, go be a designer for years, because that's like the core of it. Go be on like X team or Y team or the performance team. But like once you get like the best people most suited for that are, hey, I didn't go get 10 years senior in one thing, but I went and got solid for 3 years at something. And I'm also like people, like a lot of introverted people want to end up being the creative director. And I'm like, hey, guess what? This is actually kind of an extrovert's job because it's way more network related. But anyway.
So that's our advice. That's our advice for this week.
Indeed.
If you want advice on anything, picking the right IRA, sports betting, etc., you can DM Ashwin. Any marketing confessionals, feel free to DM any of us. Any other call to actions here? Please leave us a review. Sign up for the email list. All this is on here. We appreciate y'all tuning in. We got a lot of people tuning in now.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, we do. It's been great, man. The response has been awesome, and it's cool to see messages like that one gentleman, Marcos, this week was like, "This is the pod I've been waiting for a long time." Guess what? All of us wanted it as well when we were in our career, so that's why we made it.
Who knew that 3 really likable, successful guys with big social media audiences could make a working podcast?
Likable,
yeah. I'm the least likable.
Maybe.
You guys are likable. That's fine.
Indeed. Well,
all right, guys.
As long as we can overcome our group chat, we'll be good. Thank you, everybody. Thank you to Antonio, our son, who is running so much of the operations here, making this thing go. Antonio Collins, the man.